In the year 1308, a man by the name of Dante Alighieri would write one of the most influential poems of all time, the Divine Comedy, or more importantly, the first part of the Divine Comedy, Dante's Inferno. The journey of a man mentioned above, Dante, journeying through the 9 layers of hell, accompanied by the ghost of an ancient Roman poet, Virgil. They journey through the horrors that hell offers, like eternal flames, pools of boiling blood, and human monster trees. They come across several Greek mythology characters, like Charon the ferryman, Cerberus the three-headed dog, and King Minos. And of course, this deals with the big bad himself, Lucifer, where he meets him in the cold winds of hell. Dante's Inferno has stood the test of time, as for more than 700 years, the story has had huge influence on so many different pieces of media today, and heck, the Catholic Church even recognizes it as a work of art. With how well this poem has been respected and used, the possibilities are endless on what you could do with the story. I wonder how people would use the Divine Comedy today. For, I don't know, like a video game. Maybe a psychological horror about the horrors of hell and how unforgivable it can be. Sounds great, right? Or maybe you could do, I don't know, like a platforming action adventure game, similar to a certain game at the time that was really popular. You'll already know what they chose. In 2010, Visceral Games would make Dante's Inferno for the Xbox 360 and PS3. The game is based off the Divine Comedy, or specifically the first part of the Divine Comedy, Dante's Inferno. The Divine Comedy has 3 parts, Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso. But for our game, we only deal with the first part. Now, I'm going to be breaking down the video game while at times comparing it to how it relates to the actual poem. I won't go through every little detail from the poem and game because there's a lot, but I will show some stuff they did the same and some stuff they did differently, because there's a lot that is similar and a lot that is not. And at the very end, I'll give my opinion on the video game and the original poem, if you care. So without further ado, let's look at one of the most insane video games I've seen, that is Dante's Inferno. At the start of the journey, we are told that it is the year of 1191. European knights captured the city of Acre, which is very close to Jerusalem. Under the order of King Richard, 3,000 prisoners were detained, then held for ransom by the Kurdish protector of the Holy Land. But as the two parties couldn't negotiate on the prisoners, their fates were left undecided. Then we flash through the forest, where we see our protagonist Dante say,
"At the midpoint on the journey of life, I found myself in a dark forest, for the clear path was lost."
So this line is word for word the beginning line in the Dante's Inferno poem. Same forest and same text roughly. I just want to say this now, the translation of the poem is a little bit different from which website you see, because written 700 years ago in Italian, so the translation ain't gonna be perfect. But as we see, the setting and the text is on point. However, that text I said at the start about the 3,000 prisoners is completely original to the video game. It is not in the poem. But you will see as the story goes on how the video game differentiates from the poem, but we will get to that later. Now we see the protagonist Dante, body is cut in the form of a cross and is ripped. And these two Dantes are completely different. Video game Dante is jacked, a knight, and kicks a lot of ass. But poem Dante is not jacked, not a badass, and is scared shitless the entire time he's in the Inferno. We get an animated intro to show Dante was one of the European knights who captured those 3,000 prisoners near Jerusalem. And let's just say he wasn't very good at those prisoners. Now flash to our first time we have gameplay. We see the escaped prisoners attacking Dante, and Dante's fighting them off. But after the fight, Dante is alone, when suddenly one of the prisoners sneaks up on him and stabs him in the back. After this, Dante is encountered by the Grim freaking Reaper, who tells Dante that he is cursed for damnation because of his sins. And with this, the literal start of the game, you are fighting the Grim Reaper, aka Death, aka the Big Cheese. And my god, you kill him, and you take his scythe. And this scythe is your main weapon for the rest of the game. After killing literal Death, Dante goes to see his beloved girlfriend Beatrice, but finds her assassinated. In his sorrowness, her ghost appears before him, but before he could touch her ghost boobies, Beatrice is taken by Lucifer. Dante is then ambushed by minions of hell, where he must fight them. After defeating the minions of hell, he follows Beatrice to a church. But in the church, the floor opens up, engulfing Dante, where he is falling to hell. While falling there, he's fighting minions of the Hell Army, but he eventually reaches the bottom, where he comes across Virgil, a Roman poet who lived under Julius Caesar. And Virgil is a guide for us in this game and is an ally to Dante for the duration of the game. Now, comparing this to the poem, all that stuff doesn't happen. Remember when I said the first line was the same from the poem in the video game? Yep, that's where it ends. for now. So it goes in the line I previously said Dante says, to instantly meeting Virgil, them chatting, where Virgil reveals they're in the pit of the underworld, and the only way out is through hell. Boom! Now we are all caught up on what the boys are doing on both sides. Our hero Dante journeys to the shores of Akron to find his beloved Beatrice. We see helpless souls falling to hell, and we also see Charon the ferryman from Greek mythology, taking souls to hell. We see Charon as a humanoid boat creature. Just look at him! He's a boatman, head of a man, and the rest is a boat. And he says his iconic line of, now, Dante has his sights set on that boat, so he goes to the boat. But along the way, he comes across a guardian demon. Get it? Because it's a guardian angel, but it's a guardian demon. Yeah, whatever. But after he defeated those dudes, Dante gets to Charon and manages to kill the boatman creature. After this, he falls deeper down into hell, reaching limbo. Now in the poem, it isn't as epic. It details Virgil and Dante coming across Charon, who's smacking people to get on his boat. And of course, he says the line of, abandon all hope, ye who enter here, and Dante asks if they can hitch a ride with him, but Charon says he isn't dead, so no, you can't ride my boat. But Virgil's like, dog, we're on a journey from God, and Charon's like, why didn't you just say so, get on? And then they travel to limbo. That's pretty much where it ends. I also want to point out here that in the video game, Dante comes across a lot of historical figures, most from the Roman Empire and Greece, and you can choose to damn them or grant them salvation depending on your answer. And with this, it will either upgrade your holiness or unholiness, and both sides have different upgrades. I mentioned this for two reasons. One, it's just a really cool idea to utilize in a video game, and two, in Dante's poem, the encounters we have with these figures that we can allow to grant them salvation or damn them is actually conversations Dante has in the poem. I just think it's a very neat way they tied in all of Dante's conversations with the Roman poets, the Greek poets, historical figures in the video game because he does a lot of it in the poem. That's just something I want to mention because I thought it was cool. Back to the video game. In Limbo, we encounter little Freddy Krueger babies. They're supposed to be unbaptized babies. They're not called that, but I'm calling them that. In the poem, unbaptized infants are actually in limbo, but they're fine. Nothing happens to them. They just kind of exist. Basically, everything in limbo in the poem is just pretty normal. Just a little depressing because you're dead. This is off topic, but I love these demon door things. Cool, right? Anyways, we come across King Minos, again, Greek mythology. He's eyeless and has the lower body of a serpent and sniffs souls to see what their sins are. But Dante is all about whooping tail, so he gives King Minos the wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. After Dante defeats King Minos, he then journeys deeper into hell, and then we get a flashback scene where we see that Dante was one of the knights who captured those 3,000 prisoners. He was told to not get rid of them, but Dante isn't a big fan of this. However, Dante is compromised by one of the prisoners, that being a female, who sleeps with him in order to save her and her brother. And now Dante has officially committed adultery and has cheated on his girlfriend. Now, this part of hell is purely for people who did live good lives, but didn't accept Jesus, were born before Christianity, or unbaptized infants. But basically everything in Limbo isn't that bad. And we do get to see Dante talking to famous Greek and Roman people like Electra, Socrates, Plato, a lot of famous guys who are still remembered today in history. It's actually explained that everyone is just sighing there. They're just kind of like dead, but it's not that bad. I thought it was pretty funny. And Limbo's just pretty chill compared to the other sides of hell. It's honestly, if I was going to hell, I'd probably choose Limbo. It's not that bad. Back to the video game. In the second layer of hell, it's lust. And we see a giant Cleopatra there. Good God. And we see this enemy of a female, which appears to be a giant, snake tongue thing coming out of her hoo-ha. I don't know. Now back to Cleopatra. We fight Cleopatra, and she is still giant. Anyway, we see Beatrice all deviled up by Lucifer, and Lucifer comes back to talk smack to you. But before he leaves, Cleopatra is back and as big as ever and summons Mark Antony from her mouth, her lover. And you gotta fight her and Mark Antony at the same time. And after you kill Mark Antony, Cleopatra goes into desperate measures, tries to seduce you, but it doesn't work on Dante, and he manages to kill Cleopatra. And that is pretty much what happens in the lust layer of hell in Dante's Inferno. Now, in the poem, Dontavius and Virgil the Vigil actually meet up with King Minos, who isn't in Limbo, but is after Limbo, but before the lust layer. He judges people on which place they go into hell, and he also has the lower body of a serpent, just like in the video game. At first, he didn't let Dante and Virgil pass, but then they learned they're on a journey from God, and he lets them pass. Now, the two of them make their way into the lust layer. I can't be mistaken this, but in the poem, it says there's an internal hurricane that never rests. It hurtles the spirits onward, whirling them around it molests them. Now, this would make a lot of sense because it's lust, but a hurricane molesting you does seem like something that would happen in hell. Again, this is also in the 1400s, so the word could have meant something different back then, but I like to think it's the hurricane's touching your no-no square, which is way, way wilder. Now, in the lust layer, we do see our girl Cleopatra, who isn't a giant, thumbs down. But she's there getting tortured, so there's that. There's also a lot of famous people like Achilles, the Greek hero. Dante is really just throwing people around in hell like celebrities. It's wild. Anyways, that is about it what happens in the hell layer. Let's go check back in on the Chad Dante. In our third layer of hell, which is gluttony, Dante encounters Cerberus from Greek mythology. And it's not a three-headed dog, but a three-headed lizard worm thing? I got no idea what the hell this thing is. But Dante chops all of his heads off and moves through the gross layer of gluttony. This layer looks pretty sick. Everything is fleshy. It looks like the platforms you're on are tongues and organs because gluttony, eating food and such, going down your throat. Do you get it? There's also walls with eyes on it and faceless teeth monsters. Then we do see a new monster in the layer of gluttony. It is a fat monster who endlessly consumes souls of the dead. At this point, Dante has a panic attack and remembers his father's gluttony of wine and women back when he was a kid. And Satan comes back to talk some more shit to Dante. Then Lucifer shows Dante his father and his girlfriend's death, and his dad being a sleazeball before getting murdered. And unfortunately, his girlfriend isn't lucky either, as she is killed. And we find out the man who killed Dante's hus was the man Dante spared, that being the brother of the woman he slept with. Then we find out that wasn't his sister, that was his wife, and he was exacting his revenge. Now, after this occasion, Dante is confronted by his father in hell. He's a giant blob of gluttonous shame. Dante remembers his father as a horrible person, not caring for anyone but himself, women, money, and alcohol. Back to the other Dante. He makes his way to the third layer of hell. Oh, by the way, Dante keeps passing out and waking up in different layers. This is like the third time this has happened, but here we go. But in the third layer, we do encounter the three-headed dog Cerberus, and he's actually a dog, but does have features like a worm, as Dante calls him the Great Worm. Now, Cerberus is tearing some shit up, ripping people in quarters, thirds, and maybe even sixths. Now, Dante and Virgil are seen by Cerberus, and as Cerberus charges them, Virgil throws dirt down each of Cerberus's mouths, and they just escape. Now, Cerberus is obviously detailed with gluttony, as people in this layer are committed to gluttony, so they're eaten by him. Great irony, am I right? That's about it. It's pretty much just that. And there's also souls who play dead on the floor, so they don't get eaten by Cerberus, but they're just basically torn to shreds, reheal, torn to shreds, and an endless hell and gluttony. And that's about it. Our Chad Dante is now in the fourth layer, greed. We first take a look at a liquid gold lake, and a new monster appears called a hoarder/waster. It's two men sewn together, one hoarding coins and the other wasting coins with a giant hammer. We also see people made of gold stuck in the wall, struggling to move. And in this scenario, we need to pull levers down so we can get this movable wall to come down to pick us up to help us progress through the game. And when we get the platform to fall down, it cuts off the people's heads who are stuck in the wall. Then they grow back in an endless torment. Dante then comes across Plutus, the god of wealth. Plutus is just a statue. In his area, it's just an illusion/puzzle in the game and not a physical god, which is a bit of a letdown, but they kind of need to split some hairs on which bosses they have in this game. Anyways, after Dante's done on his gold crusade of puzzles, gold lakes, and rotting minotaurs, he meets his disfigured father at the end of the layer of greed. Dante fights his old man and eventually gets the better of him. And Dante, instead of making excuses and being selfish like his father, he admits his faults to his father, stating he's no better than him and accepts his sins. But he won't leave without his girl Beatrice. He then hits his father with the cross, evaporating. Dante then moves on to the next layer of hell. Now the soy Dante. God, my head is cooked. In the poem, we see our two hell-traveling boys come across Plutus, the god of wealth, in Greek mythology. When I first read this, I got excited because I thought it was Pluto, which is the god of the underworld in Roman mythology, and I was like, yo! Roman mythology! But it was just Greek mythology, and I was like, damn. Anyways, Plutus is worshipping Satan and is talking like a madman to Dante and Virgil. But Virgil states they're on a mission from God, and Plutus backs down. Now, I have a gripe with this. Why is King Minos such a powerful deity down in hell, but the literal Greek mythology god is such a bitch? I don't know. Just me. Anyways, Dante and Virgil see a bunch of bald people in the layer of greed, and souls here are separated in two groups, hoarders and wasters. Both push heavy objects up a hill, and they both reach the top, where they then argue with each other. And after this, they clash with each other, and both falling down back down the hill, and then they do it again, and again, and again, because they're stubborn, greedy sons of bitches. And I also like how they incorporated this in the video game, because I said there's the monster that is the hoarder slash waster. So it's almost like in this layer, these two have collided so much together that they created one monster. One's a hoarder, one's a waster. And I thought that was a very neat thing they did in the video game, which is very, very neat and dandy. But everything after that is pretty much what it is. And Dante and Virgil move on to the next layer of hell. Now for the rest of the video, I'm gonna switch it up and start with the poem first, then go to the video game. We all good? Sick. Our fifth layer of hell, we see Dante and Virgil come across the river Styx. And my goodness, at this point, Dante Alighieri is competing with Santa Monica Studios at the amount of Greek mythology crossover at this point. Anyways, they come across the river Styx, and in the river, they see people in it. They are all naked, angry, and they start tearing each other apart, biting the breast and feet of other people because they're very angry and nasty in their lives, and now they're very angry and nasty in hell, and they're being tormented there. As our heroes journey, they come across a man riding a boat through the lagoon. The man is Phlegus. Phlegus, again, Greek myths, is the son of Ares, who is the god of war. So, as a demigod who is the son of war, it makes sense for him to be in the fifth layer of hell, that is wrath. So Phlegus rides his boat across the river Styx, and the people in there are very, very angry and bitey, so you don't want to fall in there because you're gonna have a bad time. Dante and Virgil then get on the boat, and as they are riding the boat, a man's head appears out of the river and talks to Dante. Dante asks him why he's so gross. He says, "I am the one who weeps," and then puts his hand on the boat, and Virgil tells him to get back in the river. Virgil hits the man back in the river. And then Virgil essentially, I think, grabs Dante by the neck, kisses him on the face, and tells him to lock in. That is not word for word, but that's essentially what he did. As they keep moving along the river, Dante sees the man they kicked off the boat. He's being berated and shouted at by all the other souls in the river. After those shenanigans, they arrive at the destination, which is the city of Dis. And upon arriving there are fallen angels, aka demons, guarding the gate of the city of Dis. These demons recognize Dante isn't dead and won't allow him entry. Virgil tries to negotiate, but it doesn't work, and the demons bring out the Furies from Greek mythology. The three Furies are blood-stained and pissed, and they summon Medusa to turn Dante to stone. And if Dante gets turned to stone, that's it. He's stone. There's no saving him. But as things were getting rough, emerging from the river Styx, the people in the river Styx are yelling and moving frantically, and that is because an angel is walking across the river Styx as he's been sent from heaven, and he is pissed. He comes there and threatens the demons and the Furies, and opens the gate for Dante and Virgil. With that, the pair continue on to the sixth layer of hell, in the city of Dis. Things are picking up nice in the poem. Now let's go back to the video game. So in layer 5, it's called anger instead of wrath, but the same thing. Here we do see the river of Styx, and in the river there are hands trying to grab Dante. This is a reference to the angry people we see in the lake in the poem. In the new layer of hell, the enemy we see are just minions of hell and demons, but they are on fire. The fire symbolizes anger or wrath, so it fits well with this layer. As Dante journeys, he's haunted by previous sins, as he remembers the bishop of him and his knights was an evil man and absolved all the soldiers of crimes they committed, basically getting them to murder without reason and saying, hey, it's fine. They're heretics. They deserve to die, manipulating the knights. And this is referenced a bit throughout the story, but this is why Dante has killed innocents and has committed adultery, because the bishop was stating he was absolved of all of his sins. But as we know, the bishop is not a man of God and is possibly the devil in disguise. It's never elaborated, but he's evil. After that, Dante continues his way hacking and slashing through this creepy forest. He eventually reached the river Styx. And as we see in this game, there are stone people in the river, implying that they were turned to stone by Medusa. We don't see Medusa in the game, and I think this is just a nod to the poem that Medusa has frozen many souls throughout the years. Oh, remember the poem when Phlegus takes Dante and Virgil across the river Styx on his boat? Well, in this game, he's a giant fire monster. F it, why not? And at this point, Dante must fight enemies of hell while dodging attacks from the giant Phlegus. And after a few rounds of this, Dante defeats all the demons and manages to get on Phlegus' head and control him. We then get a cutscene of Satan and Beatrice making out, and it's making Dante furious. As we see, as we're on the giant, we're causing rampage, destroying everything in our way. And we do see the three Furies turn to stone, implying Medusa turned them to stone. Sick, right? Alright, as we're on top of the big giant, we break down the door of Dis, entering it and officially entering the sixth layer of hell, heresy. Dante and Virgil arrive in the sixth layer of hell, heresy. From now on, to the sixth layer to the ninth layer of hell, it all takes place in the city of Dis. In the sixth layer, Dante and Virgil come across flaming tombs with people inside them. The people inside these tombs are heretics, which I definitely knew before reading this. Heretics are people who have contradictory religious beliefs to a certain religion. So people here had different religious beliefs that weren't in line with Christianity. So now they are here burning in tombs. And as Dante and Virgil keep moving along, they smell a foul stench that smells so bad that with their constant journeying, and now with the stench, they need to take a breather and catch their breath and talk for a little bit. For the rest of the layer, Virgil just talks to Dante about the next layer they're going into, which is violence, and how there's 3 stages to violence. Dante kind of just speed wrote through the 6th layer. I guess it is what it is. After this, they go on the move onto the 7th layer of hell, but at the beginning of the 7th layer, it is guarded by a Minotaur. And this dude Virgil got balls of steel. He starts talking crap to the Minotaur, saying, "Oh, you're tough, huh? Yeah, Theseus, the guy who smoked you and everything, yeah, he's in hell too. You want to go find him and find out what happens again?" Virgil just wants to smoke with everyone in hell. I love it. With Virgil angering the half-man, half-bull, he starts thrashing and freaking out. And I believe what happens is the Minotaur exhausts itself and collapses. Then they just go on to the 7th layer of hell. Now our video game man. Now the 6th layer of hell of heresy is a little bit different than the poem boy. But at the start of the 6th layer, we're swinging from rope to rope, as you do, and we see coffins on a wall and hear people screaming. Each coffin is glowing red, so each coffin is burning each person alive in an endless, brutal hell, just like the poem does. We get 3 new enemies in this layer of hell. First, the Fiend, which is a flying bat-like creature that can shoot little balls of fire. The next enemy is the Heretic, and they are tall and thin and are warlocks working as priests, and are annoying as shit. And the final enemy is a pagan, very similar to the Heretic, instead they're purple. They're priests who worship fake gods, and they're even more annoying as shit as the heretics. Dante goes through waves of pagans and demons, then eventually doing the usual puzzle. As Dante finishes his puzzle, he rides a hellish elevator to progress through this layer of hell. As Dante reaches the end of the layer of hell, the roof starts to collapse, and Dante needs to get the hell out of there. He rushes through, avoiding destruction, making it out alive, and progressing to the next layer of hell. That's kind of it. Nothing really happens in the heresy layer of hell. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but we're moving on to the best layer of hell, violence. After getting past the bull man, Dante and Virgil are now in the 7th layer of hell, violence. It's the 7th layer, and it's separated into 3 different parts. The first part is violence against a person. The second part is violence against yourself, and the third part is violence against God. In the first part of the 7th layer, Dante comes across a river of boiling blood. Souls are in the boiling blood and boiling them alive. And anytime they try to leave, they are shot by arrows from centaurs from Greek mythology. The centaurs ask Dante and Virgil who the hell they are, and why isn't Dante dead? Virgil responds with, "Hey, I'll explain it to you guys, relax." And Virgil does. The centaurs then explain to Dante and Virgil what they're doing in hell. They're explaining to him that they're shooting people who try to leave the river. Then the one centaur, Nessus, takes Dante and Virgil across the river. Upon reaching the other side of the river, it takes him to the second part of violence. Now, this is for people who have committed unaliving, and we see the 2 in the woods, with nothing else there. The trees are sharp, with no fruit on them, and they look dead. But Dante points out that there are harpies in the forest, having nests on the trees. They have the face of humans, broad wings, and feet with claws. And Dante sees the harpies eat the leaves from the trees. Virgil then tells Dante, "Yo, check this out," and plucks a branch of the tree, and the tree starts to bleed and yell in pain. They're tree people! Dante actually feels bad for the tree people. So Dante returns some branches to him that were plucked off by the harpies, which I thought was a nice little gesture. The tree people are tortured here to constantly get eaten and scratched up by harpies for all eternity. Dante and Virgil now descend into the final layer of violence, which is violence against God. Arriving in this layer, Dante and Virgil come across a desert-like area. There's thick, hot sand with people naked, lying down, screaming in pain. And there's some there just sitting down in the sand, and others continuously walking. And all the while, there are fire flakes falling from the sky. Sounds like a delicious cereal. Fire flakes. I like it. Dante comes across a man burnt beyond recognition. Dante recognizes him as an old mentor from his younger years. He asks him to sit down and talk, but the man warns Dante that if he sits down, he cannot get up. The man is doomed to wander this layer of hell, forever burning. The boys journey to the end of the 7th layer, which is at the end of a waterfall, and they are about to go on to the 8th layer of hell, but they encounter a beast with the face of a man, body of a serpent, wings and paws, and hairy until his armpits. The beast they have encountered is Geryon. And who would have guessed it? ancient Greek. Virgil warns Dante of Gerion's trickery, but they get on his back and then travel to the 8th layer of hell, and that's where the end of the violence layer ends for our two heroes. Now, our 7th layer in the video game does pick up quite a bit. As we arrive at the 7th layer, violence, we do see various minotaurs through the game, but right here we see a giant minotaur statue that we use to break a barrier to progress through the game. As the poem started with the first layer of River of Blood, we also see a river of blood and people suffering inside of it. And we do see giant statues of centaurs watching over the River of Blood. In the 7th layer, our new enemy we see is the Archdemon, which is the same as the other demon, but we see this Archdemon has wings and are generally tougher to kill. The next enemy is a Damned Crusader, which appears to be a fallen knight who fought beside Dante when they took those 3,000 prisoners, and now they are doomed in hell to fight as Hell's army. Dante gets past the first part of the 7th layer and makes his way to the second part of the Unaliving Woods. And as we saw in the poem, there are decayed trees and they do have people attached to them. We also see this weird plant thing that hypnotizes you into trying to unalive yourself. Cool, unique detail right there. As Dante goes to the depressing woods, he finds his poor mother hung and made of branches in the 7th layer. We see Dante's mother hated her life and hated Dante's father, but couldn't get out of the marriage, and she saw Dante only becoming more like his father, so she took her own life. Dante absolves his mother, and his mother tells Dante to save Beatrice as she is the only one that can be saved. Dante moves on to the third part of the 7th layer, and we see fire flakes falling. Also, sounds very delicious. And there's also hot sand. Dante has flashbacks of killing the prisoners, and Dante's friend, which is Beatrice's brother, tries to stop Dante. But after being attacked by the prisoners, he has no choice. Then him and Dante slaughter the prisoners. Dante then kills some more demons and does some puzzles. Then he finds himself at the end of the 7th layer, where he has a boss fight with his old friend, Francesco. He is now a giant monster who lives in hell, and Dante does try to talk him out of it, but he is too angry and we fight. And we fight him and we defeat him. And he asks us to use his soul wisely and redeem him. And Dante redeems his old friend. And then we move on to the final part, which is getting on Gerion's back, which we do in the video game, but he is just a statue, and we slowly fall down to the 8th layer, and we gotta fight enemies. But after fighting the enemies, we arrive at the 8th layer of hell. Fraud. Our two Italian boys have now descended to the second last layer of hell, fraud. In the 8th layer, it is labeled as fraud, but Dante calls it malbage. And this layer consists of 10 ditches. You thought a layer of hell with layers like 3 in it, like in the 7th layer, was a lot? Well, get ready for 10 layers, buddy. Strap in. The first ditch punishes those who are seducers. Seducers are punished by being whipped by demons. I believe seducers are represented as sex traffickers or pimps. You know what I mean. The second ditch in the 8th layer is for flatterers, and this layer is pretty damn rough, as Dante describes it as people moaning, snorting with their muzzles, and Dante describes it smelling terrible. Then, when he finally gets to the circle, everyone is submerged in human excrement. They're buried in literal This has to be one of the worst punishments shown. Not only are you suffocating, but the smell of at the same time. It's in your mouth, eyes, your fingernails. It's awful. Terrible. Stop. I'm gonna stop thinking about it. Why'd I mention that? Anyways, Dante recognizes some people in the filth and starts talking smack to them. Dante and Virgil get kind of bored and they go on to the third ditch, which is for Simonix, which is someone who uses the church for personal gain, like using the church to get yourself rich and such. And the punishment here for these boys is they're placed upside down and their body is buried, but their feet are sticking out from above and they are being set ablaze by fire. Pretty unique stuff. Upon reaching the fourth ditch, we found out this ditch is for sorcerers, and their punishment here is their heads are twisted completely backwards and can only see their past and not their future. So honestly, it doesn't sound that bad for your standards we have right now, honestly. I don't know why Dante kind of led up this far into hell, but whatever. The fifth ditch is for berators or judges. I believe their punishment is being forced into a lake of boiling oil, and anytime they try to get out, they are pushed back in by demons. I believe it's called pitch, and I think that is oil, but if it's not, don't hurt me if I'm wrong. Also, another cool thing that happens, which is a demon named Malcoda. Malcoda farts to direct other demons what to do. Like, for real, here it is, word for word. He made a trumpet from his rump. He farted. He straight up farts. So random. After that weirdness, we get to the sixth ditch, which is for hypocrites. In this layer, the souls are forced to wear orange cloaks made of lead. They look very nice and shiny on the outside, but are uncomfortable and heavy on the inside. I think my guy Dante was running out of ideas for punishments on people, but I digress. The seventh ditch is for thieves. The thieves in this layer are naked and being chased by serpents and lizards, and are bitten by said serpents and lizards. demons, where they painfully turn to ash. But before they can completely turn to ash, they are regenerated back to a human, where they are chased again by the serpents and bitten and turn to ash again in one big old loop. The 8th ditch are for fraudulent counselors. And what's interesting about this part in hell is that it's fraud, and this is something I forgot to mention at the beginning of it, is that fraud is uniquely a human sin. We see other deities and gods commit sin throughout hell, but fraud is purely human sin. Just thought it was neat to mention that. Anyways, the punishment for people in this ditch is they are engulfed by flames, to the point it's described as a firefly in a valley during a summer evening, which just sounds so relaxed. Anyways, they're burning, you get it. The next ditch is for schematics, which basically means people who intentionally create conflict between two people who have different opinions on that topic. They are, if I had to guess, people who are trying to rage bait you. Then if that is true, they absolutely belong in hell. No doubt, hell is where they belong. Here they are mutilated by a demon with a sword, torn to shreds by an evil angel, and immediately being repaired, then getting mutilated by a demon again. There's also a dude without his head who holds it up in front of him when he walks right here. You know, might as well, right? We then arrive to the final ditch, which is for falsifiers. We see people are punished here by different diseases, and with the disease, it drives them mad and causes them to tear themselves apart by scratching their skin. My goodness, after 10 small parts of torment in the 8th layer, Dante and his stoic buddy Virgil finally enter the final layer of hell. Alright, enough poems, let's check in on the video game. At the beginning of the 8th layer, we see Beatrice being carried out on a bed by demons. It seems Lucifer has made her the queen of hell, and the demons listen to her commands. Dante says he's here to save her. She responds by saying, "I don't wish to see you hurt," but she is under the spell of Lucifer and forces Dante to fight through the 10 circles of the 8th layer, that being fraud. At the beginning of this layer, Dante fights the demon Malcoda, who is the demon who rips ass in the poem. He's a demon, and he seems to have a protective layer of fire around him, and is one tough cookie. But Dante does defeat and kill the demon, and he moves on to the 10 circles of hell here. Dante starts a circle at Panderers and Seducers, just like the poem. And each circle you get to, there is specific challenges for Dante to do, and every layer has a bonus thing to beat it in a certain amount of time to get bonus powers. I'm just mentioning this because it's part of the game, and it's just kind of neat. I thought it was kind of neat. You think it's neat? Maybe? I don't know. Dante has to fight various demons and then move on to the next circle. So in the first layer, he's just fighting demons, and he gets infinite magic here, and it's a fairly easy layer. But Dante then moves on to the second layer, that being Flatterers. And as Beatrice explains, the souls here live in human filth, which is gross. Here, Dante must get a 100-hit combo, and after completing that, we move along to the third circle, Simonists. And we see those humans propped upside down, burning just like in the poem. The challenge here is to kill 5 enemies in the air, and that is kind of ironic considering they're all buried in the ground. You gotta kill them in the air. Maybe, I don't know. Whatever. We then come across the 4th circle, which is Sorcerers. Again, we see the mention of people having their heads on backwards, just like the poem, and here are challenges to stay in the air for 8 seconds. Lucifer gotta step up his challenges, bro. This is getting out of hand. Anyways, he reaches the 5th circle, which is for Politicians, which is a bunch of boiling oil, just like we saw in the poem, and demons throw them in there. Also, look at the statue of people hanging off the demon's wings. Sick, I love it, right? Our challenge is to defeat all the enemies while protecting 2 innocent civilians. It's no challenge for Dante, and he is halfway through the 8th layer of hell. He arrives at the 6th layer, which is for hypocrites. And of course, it states men here are wearing large lead coats, just like in the poem. The challenge here is to kill all enemies without using any magic. But as the challenge is happening, an Asterian beast barges in, and the challenge is cancelled. Dante uses the giant beast to escape to the 7th circle, Thieves, where souls here are entangled and suffocated by snakes, and the challenge here are getting tougher as our challenges is to kill all the enemies before your health runs out. After completing that, we reach the 8th circle, which is Evil Counselors. The challenge in here is to kill all enemies without blocking. Dante is bruised and battered, but still pushes on and is determined to save Beatrice. He reaches the 9th circle, which is Sorrows of Discord. The part of hell demons mutilate the souls. We even get a statue of a guy who holds his head up. Neat. Our challenge is to kill every enemy without resetting the hit counter. Dante completes this, and he finally reaches the final circle of the 8th layer of hell. And the 10th circle is for falsifiers. This circle is for souls who suffer of disease. Our challenge here is to kill every single enemy. Dante kills all the enemies and reaches the end of the 8th layer, where he is confronted by Beatrice. And Beatrice is actively putting Dante through hell trying to kill him, but Dante doesn't care and fights through because he knows deep down Beatrice's soul is still good. But as Dante is talking to Beatrice, he is plagued with more memories, where we see him and his friend Francesco after they slaughter the prisoners. Their king arrives and demands who killed the prisoners, and Francesco takes the fall for Dante and asks Dante to take care of his sister. Francesco is hung for his crimes, and Beatrice is furious her brother took the fall for Dante's crimes. She demands Dante respond, but Dante falls to his knees, admits he has done horrible things, and states he gives up on his journey and he belongs in hell. He apologizes for everything he has done and hopes Beatrice can forgive him. But as long as Beatrice is granted paradise, he is happy. But as Dante is about to give up, an angel descends from the heavens and takes the evils away from Beatrice and takes her up to heaven. And Dante is wondering what is happening, but the angel assures Dante that his redemption is almost over and states he will see Beatrice again, thus ending the 8th layer of hell and moving on to the final layer of hell, treachery. Dante and Virgil have gone through 8 layers of hell, and it was all worth it, as they have reached the 9th and final layer of hell, treachery. Reaching the entrance to the 9th layer, they come across giants. The giants are chained up in a cold layer of hell. The giants are Nimrod, and Nimrod coordinated the Tower of Babel, which the Tower of Babel, if you didn't know, was a tower to reach God. God didn't like it, and he stopped them. So that's why Nimrod is in the final layer of hell. The other giant is, forgive me for this, Ephialtes, who is actually a giant in Greek mythology who tried to overthrow the Olympians in Greece. And the other giant is Antaeus, who's a pretty chill guy and helps Dante and Virgil out by picking them up and placing them in the final layer. And he helps them out because Dante promises to spread the word of the giant's legacy to everyone once he gets out of hell. So they reach the final layer of hell, and upon reaching it, Dante comes across an enormous frozen lake that makes up most of the final layer. The 9th layer is separated into 4 parts. The first part has thousands of people frozen in the lake, with only their heads sticking out. All their heads turn purple from the cold. This part is called Cana, after Cain from the Bible. He's the firstborn child of Adam and Eve. His sin was killing his brother. So with that, the first part of the 9th layer is betrayal of your family. The second part of the 9th layer is called Antiana, named after the Trojan Antenor. He betrayed his own people of Troy, so this part is betrayal of your own country. Their punishment here is the same as last, but the first part, as their heads were frozen, they could at least move their necks. But in this part, their necks are frozen, freezing them in place to stare in one direction forever. The third part is called Ptolemea, after Ptolemy, who murdered his father-in-law and sons after he invited them for dinner. What an asshole. Dante comes across a tortured soul stating he hasn't even died yet. He committed a murder on a guest, and it was considered so evil that after committing the murder, his soul goes straight to hell, and a demon takes over his body. Goddamn rough. As before, the people are frozen here in the lake, but this time they cry tears that freeze, so they are blind. The 4th part of this layer is named Judeca, named after Judas, the guy who sold out Jesus. People here are under the lake and in rough positions, and they are frozen completely under it, always suffocating. Dante and Virgil finally reach the center of hell. At the end of their journey, they finally come across Lucifer, once a beautiful angel in God's kingdom, now a demon who's ginormous and frozen from the waist down forever for betraying God. Lucifer has 3 heads. One is red, one is black, and one is yellow. Lucifer cannot speak, but from his 3 mouths, he is chewing on 3 different people constantly. On his left and right, he's chewing on Brutus and Cassius, 2 men who played a huge part in the assassination of Julius Caesar. And in the middle head, Lucifer chews on Judas, the man who betrayed Jesus. The guy did all this for 30 pieces of silver. Hope it was worth it. So they have seen it all. Now it is time to leave. Virgil states they need to climb down Lucifer's legs to leave. Dante's like, that doesn't make any sense, but alright. They climb down past Lucifer's giant cock, which puts them in the center of the universe. Then Virgil turns around and starts climbing up. Sounds confusing, right? Well, Dante's confused as well. But since they crossed the barrier of the center of the universe, everything is now flipped. So now climbing up Lucifer's legs leads them out. Dante and Virgil made their way through 9 layers of hell and finally leave the terror that bestowed them. Dante and Virgil, after leaving, lay their eyes on a mountain called Purgatorio, which is now where our 2 Roman boys go for their next journey. And that concludes Dante's Inferno's poem. Now let's see how it ends for the video game. Dante's journey ends near, as he descends to the 9th layer of hell, treachery. As he begins, we see a frozen terrain and a few giants there, frozen in place. Just big, frozen, and chillin'. Dante then comes across a frozen bridge of ice. Dante must carefully walk across the bridge, making sure not to move too fast and making sure not to step on too fragile of a piece. Dante makes it to the end of the bridge and comes across a giant chain that leads to the center of the universe. Dante breaks it and falls down to the furthest part of hell and confronts Lucifer himself. We see the devil with 3 heads, frozen lower body, and giant wings. wings. He instantly attacks Dante, and you begin to fight the giant fallen angel. After dodging Satan's smash attacks and getting a bunch of attacks in, Dante manages to wound the giant devil. Lucifer then talks about all the warriors who come to fight him and failed against him, but Dante has gone the farthest. Then Lucifer rips open his stomach to reveal his true form, an good old-fashioned horned and hooved devil. Lucifer states that Beatrice was never what Satan wanted. He always wanted Dante. Dante tells Satan to come get some, and they fight one-on-one. Dante and Lucifer beat the crap out of each other. Dante hitting him with the scythe attacks. Satan punching Dante, punching the ground, flying in the air, and using his sword. After a while of fighting, we come to a cutscene where Lucifer explains how he stood up for his fallen angels, and Dante is a much worse person than him. And after he kills Dante, he will escape through purgatory, then paradise. Our final battle begins with Lucifer. He flies into the air, throwing projectiles at Dante. But Dante manages to maneuver his way up to Lucifer and get into a QTE with him. He tussles with the devil through the air, but manages to get on top of him and hit him with the cross, defeating the devil in a huge explosion. But as the devil is wounded, he tells Dante something that he hasn't realized this entire time. At the beginning of the game, when Dante was stabbed and got confronted by death, at that moment, Dante was killed. Meaning Dante can't leave hell or kill the devil. In fact, the devil just flicks away his scythe. It has no effect on him. Satan explains that no one can leave their dead in hell, and it's not even his choice. He states it's his choice, pointing up. So Dante can't defeat Lucifer because he is dead and in hell. However, all the people Dante has redeemed throughout his journey, like his mother, his fallen brothers, his best friend, gave him enough power to be freed. And with this, the souls fly to Dante, and they get Satan to go back into his giant body, and he is chained up, forever to be stuck in that position for all eternity. Just like the poem. Neato, right? Dante then comes across the center of the universe. We see him naked and taken by Beatrice in a very heavenly scene. He then emerges from a cave, and Dante sees a mountain, which is Mount Purgatory. Dante sheds the burned cross from his chest, but we see the ash from his chest turn into a serpent, and we hear Lucifer laugh as the game ends. To be continued. And that wraps up both of the Dante Inferno's journeys. Now, let's compare the two. Well, I'm going to start off by saying I like both of them. I think the video game does a lot of great things, and I think the poem does a lot of great things. And I'll just start with the poem here. The poem was written like over 700 years ago, so it's kind of crazy all the stuff he put in, and considering it's like pre-revolutionary stuff that would come up today's standards. So good on you, Dante Alighieri. There was a lot of good stuff you did in the poem. However, I will say the story in the poem is kind of lacking. Now, I'm going to say this. The Dante's Inferno video game has a better story than the poem. Yes, I said a game published by EA did a better job at writing a story than a world-famous poet. For starters, unlike Dante in the poem, he actually has an actual character arc. He goes from an arrogant, cocky knight, abusing his power, to a redeemed man fighting through hell to help his girlfriend. The souls we encountered throughout the way are such a great detail for the video game, because in the poem, Dante is kind of a dick. He basically put everyone he didn't like in hell. Some people were still alive, and he put them in hell in his poem. And basically everyone he meets in hell, he's saying that they deserve to be there. Like, to be fair, a lot of the people he puts in hell do deserve to be there, but it's like, Dante, do you really think the guy needs to be skinned alive every day for stealing a candy bar from a store? It just comes off very petty. But in the video game, you can give people a chance to redeem themselves, which makes Dante in the video game much more likable. And honestly, Dante in the poem faces real no adversity. Anytime where there's conflict, either Virgil will come in and take care of it, or the one time Virgil can't do anything, a literal angel from hell comes up and just bitches every single demon. He's not going to face any conflict here. He's just going through hell like a tour guide. Again, very interesting, very cool, but you know he's going to be fine. At least give me the illusion something could happen. But I'll say this, I do think it's cool that Dante is backed up by Holy Spirits to make sure he completes his journey, but from a story perspective, it makes things way less interesting. Like, don't get me wrong, the ideas of torture in this poem was very good, especially since how long ago it was, but the story is written kinda I'll cut them some slack because they weren't writing stories the same as we do today, like with the conflict arising. Then they either defeat the conflict or they don't by the end of the story. But it was different back then. But the video game really hammers down how flawed of a character Dante is, from cheating on his girlfriend and slaughtering innocents. And his journey isn't to save himself, it's to save his girlfriend who's been corrupted by evil. And I gotta say, the final fight with Lucifer is very good. You get 3 stages, and they're all pretty fun. Just for Lucifer to say, yeah, you can't kill me, dude. I'm in hell, you're in hell, and you're dead. I thought that was a neat touch to the story. And of course, Dante confronting the horrible things he'd done and admitting to himself that he's not a very good person. What I also like about the video game is that in the poem, it's revealed at the beginning of the story that Dante is on a journey from God. So that's why he's going through hell. But in the video game, he's going through hell because he's saving his girl. But we find out at the very end that Satan only took Beatrice so he could reach Dante, because Lucifer knows that God wants Dante to go on this journey. This is hinted by the angel saying Dante's journey is almost over, and Satan flat out confirming it by saying Beatrice was just a bait, he only wanted Dante. That's just a neat way the video game twisted the plot from the poem that actually makes it way more interesting, in my opinion. So, in conclusion, they all both have good things and bad things, but I feel like the Dante's Inferno game has a better story and it's very, very interesting to look at it. And plus, there is an anime about it, and I've watched it, and it's pretty darn good. So, if you like the game and like my video or whatever, then go play the video game and then watch the anime. But now I gotta talk about the elephant in the room here. The similarities to God of War. Now, listen. This is fairly obvious. Now, do I think Dante's Inferno video game flat out ripped off God of War? No. However, I do think they wouldn't have made a game in this style if it wasn't for the popularity of God of War. They literally made this game a few months before God of War 3 came out. It's got a lot of similarities of a hack and slash platformer. If you look at Dante's stance and movement, it is the exact same as Kratos, like the exact same thing. But I'll give it credit because it doesn't do anything similar as in the weapons you get from God of War, and the bosses are pretty unique. So do I think they would have made this type of game if it wasn't for God of War? No, not a shot in hell. But I do think they do enough creativity here to make it its own thing. So overall, I think it's a very good game. Does it have its flaws? Sure. Do I think it's better than the God of War games? No, I still think God of War 2 and 3 are much better games than Dante's Inferno. But those games are all-time greats. It's kind of hard to beat this game. This game, very good game. I recommend you play it, and if you haven't played it, then maybe play it again. And honestly, reading the poem and then playing the game again made it actually way more interesting. As much as I'm shitting on the poem, it is still a very good poem, if you ask me. If you read the poem, put the game, you'll see a lot of hints and details, a lot of hidden Easter eggs in the poem, and it's just a way better way to play the game again after you know what happens. But that is all from me, and I recommend you all to read the poem and play the game. But that is it. That is the wacky, wild, crazy, insane story of Dante's Inferno. Thank you for watching, everybody. Please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.